Hello. Well, it all started here in the Atlantic Monthly. Trump, Americans who died in war are losers and suckers. And this article came out on September the 3rd. Sorry about that. Choking with rage, I think. The president has repeatedly disparaged the intelligence of service members and asked that wounded veterans would be kept out of military parades. Multiple sources tell The Atlantic. All right, so I am very interested to hear when Trump said this and about whom. The author of this article is Jeffrey Goldberg, and you see it's dated September the 3rd. When President Donald Trump cancelled a visit to the aisne-marne American cemetery near Paris in 2018, he blamed rain for the last-minute decision, saying that the helicopter couldn't fly and that the Secret Service wouldn't drive him there. Neither claim was true. This is what the Atlantic says. So you assume that when an article like that is written, you're going to get some backup on it, some digging, some words from the Secret Service or from the people who were actually there, who heard what was going on. And I'm waiting to see this. Trump rejected the idea of the visit because he feared his hair would become dishevelled in the rain and because he did not believe it important to honour American war dead, according to 4 people with first-hand knowledge of the discussion that day. Well, who are these people? In a conversation with senior staff members on the morning of the scheduled visit, Trump said, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." In a separate conversation on the same trip, Trump referred to the more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives at Belleau Wood as suckers for getting killed. Well, this is serious stuff. I want to know who said it. But you know what? I'm not going to find out who said it, because nowhere in this article is there any clue whatsoever. And it's a long article, as you see. There is absolutely no attribution at all in this article to who reported that Trump said these things. And I find it rather strange that this article, which is about a story from 2018, should suddenly make its appearance 3 months before an election. Well, 2 months, actually. It's sort of odd, isn't it? And it's even odder when I remember another Atlantic article. Hang on a minute, it's somewhere in this stack. Here it is. This article, which is from The Atlantic in 2016. It published in June 2016, actually, 3 months before the 2016 election. And it was a psychologist doing an analysis of Donald Trump. They have a nice photo here, don't they? Very flattering. And then this psychologist bases his assessment of Trump's personality based on his negotiating skills, which are bombastic and tough, and his persona on the television, which is bombastic and colourful. I don't think any psychologist worth the name with the qualifications can give a personality rundown. Now, I read a book by Freud about Leonardo da Vinci. I think that's reasonable enough. He can write about Leonardo da Vinci's personality. Da Vinci is long dead, and you can analyse through his writing as much as you can about his personality, but you're not going to damage the man in any way by doing that. This is an analysis. Well, it's not even an analysis, but I can't think of another word, on a living person based on a television persona. That is unprofessional beyond the bounds of imagination, as far as I'm concerned. So it strikes me as a sort of odd coincidence, anyway, that in June 2016, The Atlantic should have run a hatchet job on Trump's personality, and then in September 2020, they should be running a hatchet job on his attitudes as a president. What really interested me, though, was the following. This was published on the 3rd of September. It was immediately followed by this in The Guardian. Trump called American war dead suckers and losers, report claims. That's dated the 4th. So they waited a day. At least they have the report, the word claims in the report. But remember, all of this is coming from this one report in The Atlantic, which is unattributed to any source at all. But here it is. This is the headline. Trump called American war dead suckers and losers. And then we have the Washington Post. Trump said US soldiers injured and killed in war were losers, magazine reports. What has happened to the idea of reporters going and finding out stories instead of reporting on what other magazines reported, for good or ill? And we have here the Mirror. Donald Trump accused of calling US war dead suckers and losers. Well, at least the Mirror has the honesty, at least, of using the word accused here rather than saying he just did. Let's see. This is a couple of nice ones. This is the Chicago Tribune. Reports President Trump disparaged slain American soldiers as losers and suckers by James Laporta. No, it's not James Laporta. You're just praising what this Jeffrey Goldberg said in The Atlantic. But anyway, President Trump disparaged slain American soldiers. Now look at this. Delray Beach, FLA. I know, it means Florida. New reports detail multiple instances of President Donald Trump making disparaging remarks about members of the US military, and so on and so on. And then I find that was on September the 4th. Here we have on September the 3rd, this article. Trump disparaged US war dead as losers and suckers, report says. Slightly different from the Tribune, but Delray Beach, FLA. A new report details multiple instances of President Trump making disparaging remarks about members of the US military who've been captured or killed, including referring to the American war dead. So it's the same article, isn't it? Yeah, well, that came out. And then there's this one in Vanity Fair on September the 3rd. Oh, she was quick. Bess Layin. Donald Bone Spurs Trump, it was bone spurs in his feet that got him out of the army, I think, thinks Americans who die in war are suckers and losers. I mean, there's no attempt there even to say that this came from another article in another magazine, is there? It's just a bald, straight out statement of, well, can you call that a statement of fact when you've just got an unattributed report in another magazine? I don't think so. It's a very sarcastic article as well. And here, the Evening Express, Aberdeen, that's Scottish. Trump dismiss US war dead as losers and suckers. Report. Oh, by using the word report, you put your conscience to bed for the night, do you? Donald Trump made multiple disparaging remarks about members of the US military who've been captured or killed and referred. That is actually exactly the same as this in the LA Times, isn't it? So they're all copying each other. And then the people.com, they at least give this. Donald Trump denies he called late John McCain and fallen US soldiers losers. As a matter of fact, Trump has never denied he referred to McCain as a loser, but he didn't quite refer to him in that way, in that exact context. I have a clip of that. Maybe I'll play that because there is a slight difference here. I'll find it and I'll put it up here. I'll give myself a minute or so of silence while we listen to this.
John McCain goes, oh boy, Trump makes my life difficult. He had 15,000 crazies show up. Crazies. He called them all crazy. I said, they weren't crazy. They were great Americans. These people, if you would have seen these people, I know what a crazy is. I know all about crazies. These weren't crazy. So he insulted me, and he insulted everybody in that room. And I said, somebody should run against John McCain, who has been, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him. I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to him. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He is a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. Do you agree with that? He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? You could have, and I believe perhaps he's a war hero, but right now he said some very bad things about a lot of people.
All right, well, you see, he was in a rivalry with McCain at the time. It was an off-the-cuff remark and it wasn't very nice, but it's not quite the same way as it's being reported. So this is an out-and-out inaccuracy. He denies he called fallen US soldiers losers. Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers. That's what he denied. And they're getting this news only, I keep saying, from this article in The Atlantic, which has strangely turned up with a 2-year-old story just before the election. Now, let's see. If you want to know where Trump really did call people losers, it was here. This is an article in the Daily Mail, and this article is from January 2020. It's when Trump was talking to his chiefs of staff, and he shouts at them, I wouldn't go to war with you people, you're all losers. How Donald Trump insulted the military's most senior officers as dopes, prompting Rex Tillerson to call him a something moron. Now here we do have an attribution, and the attribution is that Trump is saying his chiefs of staff are not worth the money they're being paid. And what he, lower down here, he railed against General John Nicholson, in charge of US forces in Afghanistan, saying, I don't think he knows how to win. And this sounds to me more like a man who is angered at the waste of fine young American soldiers. He's not calling the soldiers losers. He's calling their leaders, their generals, and the chiefs of staff incompetent. And also, being a businessman, he tasked them with this: why Middle East nations weren't giving the US oil in return for American troops. And I'd say that's reasonable as well. If he's defending these countries so they can keep up their nice lifestyles in Saudi Arabia and their tax-free lifestyles, I might say, then the least they can be doing is giving something back to America in exchange for the security that they feel against Iran. You have to remember that the Saudi Arabian army is pretty bloody terrible. And it's pretty terrible because actually, not only is it run on nepotism, where, of course, you never get the best people doing the jobs, just the best connected, but the other thing is that the governments in those parts of the world don't trust their armies not to rise up and displace them. And so for that reason, they control their armies much too closely for them to be very effective. That's why America is throwing its resources into looking after them. And I will not forget that Donald Trump, when told by his chiefs of staff that he should be bombing some, I don't quite remember what it was either an Iranian ship or actually an Iranian port, because they'd mined an American ship in the Gulf of Hormuz. He said, how many lives is that going to cost? And they gave him an estimate, and he said it wasn't worth it. So he is not a warmonger. And what he is more is a president who doesn't like his people being killed for no reason. I have in one of the articles, and I can't find it now, he talked about stopping endless wars in Afghanistan. And I think he's right. But you see, he can't do right for wrong. If he left Afghanistan, they'd get at him for deserting the Afghanis. And if he stays in Afghanistan, American people get killed. I wouldn't like to have to make decisions along those lines, but I probably would not wish my countrymen and women to be killed in the service of a corrupt regime, basically. All right, so these unnamed sources in the Atlantic, I'm wondering if they have anything to do, those words, losers, I'm wondering if they have anything to do with the chiefs of staff who were so offended by Trump's criticism of them shortly after he became president. Well, that's it. So first of all, we have here a man in the Atlantic Monthly writing an article which is not attributed and saying all sorts of nasty things about Trump, which may or may not be true, but are not proven. And then it's just one after the other being reported as if it were a fact by all these newspapers here, which I consider a bit of a disgrace. A lot of a disgrace, actually. That isn't reporting. That's campaigning. Okay, and just because I'm a bit of a literature freak, as some of you are aware, I'm going to end up and talking about the waste of war and how anyone with with any conscience should be more careful about how you send your soldiers into battle, I'm going to read you a poem, a very short poem by Siegfried Sassoon, when I found it. Now, here we are. Why can you never find anything when you need? Okay. Siegfried Sassoon was, just because I get a lot of nasty anti-Semitic comments and nonsenses under some of my videos, I want to point out that Siegfried Sassoon was a Jew who fought through the First World War in the trenches mostly the whole time, and wrote his poetry in the trenches as well. And this is one of them. It's called The General. Good morning, the General said, when we met him last week on our way to the line. Now the soldiers he smiled at are most of them dead, and we're cursing his staff for incompetent swine. He's a cheery old card, grunted Harry to Jack as they slogged up to Arras with rifle and pack. But he did for them both with his plan of attack. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.